Have you ever looked at a problem in your business and felt completely overwhelmed by it, even though logically that problem shouldn't be so complicated? And this happens to professionals and me all the time. There are actually two cognitive mechanisms behind that. Mostly, we just notice the first one, but the second one explains why some problems feel mentally more exhausting even before we start solving them. So let's walk through it. Imagine you're a business owner and you're evaluating a strategic decision. Maybe you're considering to enter a new market or launch a new product, or even want to restructure part of your team. You start thinking about the situation, but suddenly that problem just feels so massive. There are too many moving parts, so much you don't know, and so many possible outcomes. And very quickly, your brain experiences a sense of cognitive overload, which often leads to one of the two responses. Either the decision gets delayed, or your brain simplifies the situation just so it can move forward. But cognitively, something interesting is happening here. Your problem itself might not actually be overwhelming. What is overwhelming is the representation of that problem inside your mind. But before we go deeper into that, if we haven't yet met, I'm Gwen Bach. I have a master's degree in applied neuroscience, and I'm the founder of Applied Brain Lab, where I study how modern environments shape thinking and decision-making in ambitious professionals and business owners. And I love my tea. One of the most important discoveries in cognitive science is that the brain does not solve real-world problems directly. Instead, it solves the mental representations of those problems. A mental representation is simply the brain's internal model of a situation. It's how the brain organizes information before reasoning about it. And the structure of that representation determines how easy the thinking will be. If the representation is vague, thinking becomes vague. And if the representation is disorganized, guess what? Thinking becomes overwhelming. But when your representation becomes structured, thinking becomes much easier. And earlier I mentioned there are two mechanisms behind that experience. The first is the quality of the problem representation. But the second mechanism, and I've talked about that before, is cognitive load. Cognitive load refers to the amount of information the brain must process at a given time. And when that load exceeds working memory capacity, the brain experiences the situation as mentally overwhelming, even when the actual problem is really manageable for you. And this is why even slightly complex problems often become easier the moment you start writing them down, because writing forces the brain to organize the representation. And once the structure becomes visible, the thinking becomes easier. Research in cognitive science shows that effective problem solving depends heavily on how information is structured within the working memory. When representations are organized clearly, reasoning performance improves, and a major synthesis of this research appears in John Sweller's cognitive load theory. Sweller's work demonstrates that when working memory becomes overloaded, reasoning declines significantly. So the takeaway here is simple. When a problem feels overwhelming, the problem itself may not be the issue. Often the issue is the structure of the representation inside your mind. Improve that representation, and the thinking that follows usually becomes dramatically easier.